Hi guys, it is a spectacularly gorgeous day here in the end times in paradise, and we are hiding out in some undisclosed location on the Nevada-California border on this beautiful fall day. It is Wednesday, October 25th, 2017, but we're going over to Frankfurt, Germany today, where I am absolutely thrilled and honored, guys, to introduce a fellow who I've been listening to for years, but I just learned was a fellow doomsday prophet, and this is Bill Gaede. I think that is the way you pronounce his name, G-A-E-D-E. If you are not familiar with Bill Gaede's work, you need to do yourself the favor and listen to this man, and that's what we're getting ready to do for the next 30 minutes or so. And Bill Gaede we're going to be talking why Bill believes we are the last generation of human beings to inhabit the blue planet. So, Bill Gaede, welcome to Humpty Dumpty Tribe, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're just going to dive into a conversation. So say hi to the tribe.
Hello, and my name is Bill Gaede. That's all I need to say.
Gaede, okay.
Yeah, some people say Gaede. In German, it's Gaede, so.
So give us, as I say, I have no idea how to introduce this man. It could take 30 minutes just to introduce him. So introduce yourself in 60 seconds.
Well, I don't like to say much about me. I'd rather concentrate on my theories and what I've got to say. And part of the reason for that is people usually go off on tangents on finding out who is he, what does he do, and this just clouds the issues. It's better to concentrate on what does he have to say. I'm not here to make people believe me. I want people to understand what I'm proposing. Whether they believe me or not is their personal business. And the only thing you do with by introducing, oh, I've got this degree, I've got that experience, is just putting authority behind it. And I don't like that. I don't like people concentrating on, who the guy is. In fact, I look at it the other way around. A person who usually has a degree like from Harvard University or from, Cambridge or whatever, they usually, how did they get their title, their degree? They got it by memorizing, by passing the test.
Yeah, exactly.
And that means you have to answer the questions on the test. Now, you might have your own opinion about how this world runs, but you better answer the question on the test right, the way the teacher wants it or the way the establishment wants it. And that means, they're indoctrinating you. Humans have worked their way, essentially, to a catch-22 situation where we created all these institutions and they become churches.
There you go, brother. Amen. Amen. So now, so you can just look up Bill and get his whole wild resume, which I would love to get into, and we could blast off into so many directions. But what I want to talk about with Bill today is this paper that an alert tribes member sent to me that he wrote a couple of years ago, talking about why Bill believes that we are the last generation of humans on this planet. I never knew that Bill was a fellow doomsday prophet until I read this, and I was a little bit taken aback. So what we are, I could just sit here and read this, but there's no point in it. So Bill, give us a 1 minute overarching summation of why you do believe we are the last generation of humans, and then we'll break it down a little deeper. So why are we the last generation of human beings on this planet?
Okay, people usually focus on conservationism, on environmentalism, and I'm saying that's completely misguided. And people confuse me with environmentalists, people confuse me with conservationists and so on, animal lovers and whatever. And these are my enemies. I say we're going to the end of man is going to come very soon, relatively very soon. Probably we're all going to see it here, maybe in a few months, in a few years, handful of years. And what I'm saying is it has to do with economics. It has nothing to do with environment. It has to do with economics. That's the bottom line. And then we can go into more detail. But I want people to focus on economics and not about, we're climate change. It's the polar caps are melting. It's got nothing to do with that.
Okay, now, Bill, I know you're probably sorry to hear this yourself, and I know that my fellow I'm not going to sit here and debate or argue with this man. I would lose, okay? I'm not about to act like I could get into a battle of wits with this gentleman in front of me. So I am going to exercise a rare ham bun restraint and try to keep my mouth shut. And we're going to, what I call the economic end of this is I call it the shallow end of the doomsday prophecy pool. So we're going to swim around in this end. So give me, what is your vision? So you already said, did I hear you say we could see this in a matter of months?
Well, when we talk about months, that's a long. I'm not an astrologer. I cannot tell people when it's going to happen. I have my ideas, my estimates, but again, those are my opinions only. I don't like to concentrate on when. I'm just going to tell people what I think is going to happen. In other words, how the process, the mechanism of a mass extinction.
Well, let's hear it. What is your grisly picture of our near-term future as a global industrial economy? What is it that's going to bring this son of a bitch down once and for all?
The global economy cannot grow eternally. And part of the reason for that is that the population cannot grow eternally. In fact, since 1963, the birth rate, the global birth rate, right? Because people say, oh, the Africans are spitting out kids. No. The global birth rate has been dropping steadily. And steadily is a very important word there. We were growing at 2.3% population-wise, right, globally. In 1963, we're only growing at 1% today, and by the year 2050, it is predicted that we're going to grow at 0%. There's going to be no population growth. So the population curve for the world is asymptotic. It's It's curving in such a way that it's concave, right?
Yeah.
And that means that we're going to level off at some point, and population is not going to grow anymore. Now, what's the problem with that? That just in general terms, economics is based on demand, and if you don't have population demanding, you have no economics. There's a famous book, and just the title says it all: "Grow or Die." And if we don't grow, we're going to die. Now, that's in general terms, but you know what I like to do is first put it in the right context, because people say, well, what is he talking about, you know? And how does this fit into science? I define science as rational explanations. I don't call it descriptions, I call it explanation. If you can explain something to me, you're doing science, a process, a mechanism, and you're doing science, okay? And the question is, explain. You can only explain a consummated event, something that has already happened. I cannot explain the extinction of man because it hasn't happened yet.
So you can just give us your best guess.
Right, but but then the question is, how do we fit this into science? If science is about explaining rationally, and there's nothing to explain because humans haven't died, it hasn't happened yet, what is there to explain? How do we fit this into science? Okay, that's the first issue. We have to put it in the right context. And what I'm saying here is that we have to find out what the mechanism is of extinction, of a mass extinction, specifically in this case, because that's the one I'm proposing for man. We figure out how mass extinctions occurred in the past. If we can figure that out, we project that onto man and say, well, what if this happened to humans? Do we have a way of avoiding that same mechanism, that same process? And if we can't, then we have the mechanism of extinction for man. That's the general thing that I'm trying to do here, okay?
So what have you come up with?
I'm sorry?
So what have you come up with?
Okay, if you go into the internet and read books out there, you'll find out, for example, the most important or the most popular extinction is that of the dinosaurs. They're not around anymore, and they were these big monsters, and so they're very popular, right? And the number one theory, of course, most people know is the asteroid theory. I'll call it a theory, asteroid theory. Asteroid falls to Earth, kills the animals, and there's all these subsequent phenomena that happen on the planet, and kills the animals all over the planet, all the dinosaurs, right? That's number one theory.
Are you buying it? Do you buy that one or don't buy that theory?
No, of course not. If you go to the Permian, they say it was volcanoes. And if you go to the Ordovician, farther back in time, they say it was a supernova. Those are the most popular theories. There are other theories out there, okay, but those are the most popular theories. And I'm saying it's all nonsense. First, because extinction has nothing to do with the environment or climate change or any of those things. What does it have to do with? And in order to get a feel for this, in order to understand, again, I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm not trying to sell anything from door to door. I'm just trying to get people to understand what the theory is. And so I begin like this. I'm saying if we were standing at the Cambrian 540 plus million years ago, right? Mm-hmm. We were standing at the Cambrian and we look forward. We can predict, we can imagine, we can foresee that plants are regularly going to die, and they're going to be replaced by more advanced plants. For example, the ferns ruled the planet. We forget about this, but when we go to the layer of rock, we find the ferns, for example, in the Carboniferous period, right? Then came the seed ferns. They lasted all the way to the Triassic. Then came and I'm talking about those that ruled the planet, those that had the most varieties, and those that essentially populated the planet at different points in time. And, okay, so then the ferns were replaced by the conifers, and then the conifers were replaced by the angiosperms, which is what we have today, the flowering plants. Yeah. Okay? That's the big picture. Millions of years of ferns, millions of years of conifers, millions of years now of flowering plants. If we were standing at the starting line of the Cambrian, we can predict, we can foresee, in retrospect, now that we know all this, right? We can foresee that certain types of plants are going to disappear. They're going to be replaced by more advanced plants. But what happens to the animals that forged a relationship with these plants, that had niches in all these different varieties of plants? Well, when the plant goes, the animal goes. Okay? So when for example, the Glossopteris disappeared at the end of the Permian, or when the Dicrodiums disappeared at the end of the Triassic, the animals that depended on that source of food, the herbivores, they died. And the carnivores that ate them died with them. The whole system collapsed. It was an ecological collapse. The ecological pyramid overturned. We have the many chasing the few. There's no food at the bottom. And so this guy tries to eat these guys, and these guys are not there, or they're not too many, and these guys try to eat the food, and there's no plants, so the whole pyramid collapses. That's the mechanism I'm proposing. I'm proposing that you can predict that when plants disappear, the animals are going to disappear. So what's the problem with it? The problem is that you won't find this theory anywhere, and it's a guaranteed theory. Some paleontologist should have already come up with and said, when plants disappear, animals disappear. But they're all looking for asteroids. They're looking for causes, some trigger. They're saying it was a volcano. No, it was an asteroid. They're looking, or a supernova. They're looking for catastrophic agents when they don't need a catastrophic agent to show that plants are regularly going to be disappearing and they're going to be replaced by new plants. And when that happens, you have a mass extinction.
Okay, so let's...
Did you get the idea?
let's move this up to 2017 and go from dinosaurs to Homo sapiens. And
Okay.
I generally grasp your rough framework.
I'm trying to understand the theory.
I'm not saying I'm buying it 100%, Bill. But this is
Why not?
this is your
Argue
rant,
with me.
not mine
Argue with
today.
me.
But
Argue with me.
let's bump this up. So how do you take this
Okay.
ecological overturn and move it
Okay.
into an economic overturn? I guess is what you're seeing in the near future for our own species, and that's what I want to
Yeah.
concentrate on.
Well, let's. Still, there's one little detail because I said
Okay.
economics. Right? I mentioned the word economics, and people think that economics only has to do with man, and that's not true. All animals do economics. Every species on planet Earth that ever existed did economics. What is economics? Economics is the management of resources. And every animal manages resources, specifically one resource, food.
Yes.
There's no animal that does not manage food.
Well, if they don't manage it, they starve to death, right?
They're extinct. They go extinct, right? So the issue is all animals had economics. Now, what happened? The natural economics, the economics of a hunter-gatherer, like, say T-Rex, he was a hunter. All he did was kill some animal, eat them, and that's it. That's how he managed, his economics, right? And the herbivore, say Triceratops, he ate, cycads, and that was his economics. And, of course, when the plants disappear, there's nothing more to manage, the economics collapses. Their economic system collapses. And I'm saying that same thing is going to occur to man, first. And second, I'm saying he can't avoid it. There's no way, all his intelligence cannot help him in what's coming. There's no way to avoid this. It's guaranteed that it will happen. There's nothing you can do about it. That's what I'm going to argue, okay? So what I'm saying is what? We have man. And we used to be hunter-gatherers just like everybody else. But then we went to a little more sophistication. We started having agriculture. After agriculture, we moved on to manufacturing. We started producing food in great quantities. Population increased. And eventually we ended up in the society we have today, which is a service economy. In fact, we're post-service now. I say we're in the unemployment society now.
Yeah.
But that's a different issue. The point is that we are not hunter-gatherers anymore. We don't just go out into the field, kill an animal, and live one more day. That doesn't happen anymore. Maybe in some remote area of the planet, it's still happening to some degree. But people have moved on just about everywhere into agriculture. And agriculture today is also a small part of our economic system. It's a petty portion of our economic system from a labor standpoint and also from the point of view of what percentage of the GDP it forms. It's a small percentage in both places. Nobody pays any attention to food because you go to the supermarket and for some magical reason, the food is always there on the shelf. All you need is some money, but the food is there. We take it for granted.
We do.
And so we don't think about food. We think about love. We think about sex. We think about politics, football. Nobody thinks about food. We take it for granted. Food is all. If you raise the issue of food, are you crazy? And so this is the issue. The issue, we don't pay attention to food because it's a small percentage of our economic system. It's a small percentage of our labor, and it's guaranteed because we always get a store for some reason. It's always on the shelf. We don't know how it got there. We don't know who produced it.
It got there in a truck.
It's there by magic. It's in a can with a label.
Wow.
It's magic.
Isn't that cool? I love it. I love this system, man.
But see, all this stuff works because of something we call, let's see if I got some, maybe I have some still here. We call money.
Wow.
Okay? It works because of, these are euros, by the way. Okay, it works because of money. But money is something we created. Humans, we create money. We didn't find money out there in the wild. We created something called money. And money has evolved over time. Initially, when we went from subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture, we bartered. We traded maybe, corn for a chair.
Yeah.
carpenter did a chair better than me. I gave him some corn, he gave me a chair or whatever, right? Then from there, we moved on to gold and silver. We used that as a system for transactions. From there, we moved on to notes. You know, I put money in your bank.
Yeah.
You gave me a note saying you had so much money, and that eventually became the bills. And then from there, we moved on to what we have today, which is electronic money, which is so dangerous because now we have all this money out there. You know, Bill Gates, my brother, he's got a little more money than I do, and he's got, I don't know how many billions in the bank, but it's all electronic. You know, if you wipe it out with one little finger and say you got zero now, you know, that's the end of Bill Gates tomorrow morning. And then all it takes is one little button. And that kind of puts you in this whole thing in the right perspective. We got all this electronic money. Most of it is there. I'd say at least over 80% of the money in the world is in some computer system,
yeah.
Either checking accounts, savings accounts, credit, whatever. All the money is out there in electronics. And so we see how fragile this is going, because if we have a stock market collapse tomorrow morning, and like we had in 2007, the last one we had, 2007, 2008, 2 million people ended up in the streets. Well, they were able to salvage the situation because it was a relatively small bubble. I'll call it a small bubble. $7 trillion housing market, just a little, drop of water in the ocean. Fine.
Compared to what's coming, yes.
But now we have coming up, we have a $700 trillion, let me repeat that, $700 trillion bubble. And that bubble is the derivatives bubble. It's the casino of the banks. They play this game out there where they bet their money, they put your money into all these big, bubbles. Bubble here, bubble there, bubble everywhere. 700 trillion. Now, if someone happens to pop that bubble, the U.S. economy is 20 trillion. Just 20 trillion. You can't plug a 700 trillion hole with the U.S. economy. We're talking about the global economy here. And so we got a problem because if there's, what is money in the end? It's faith. I have faith that you give me $1 and I can do something with that dollar tomorrow. But what if I were to give you Vietnamese money, a Vietnamese dollar? Well, you would say, well, I can't do anything with that. Well, but it's money. It's legal tender. You say, but I can't do it. I don't want your money. It has no value for me. So it gives you an idea that all money is not money. It's whatever you have faith in. You have faith in the dollar, in God we trust. Okay, so we trust each other, right? Because you gave me the dollar and I know I can use it tomorrow. But what happens if we become atheists all of a sudden and nobody believes in money? Now we have a problem because now you give me your money and I don't accept it. And now we have a problem because now we have no more transactions, okay? And you say, well, is that possible? Is it possible for us to lose faith in money? Is it possible for the whole global system to collapse? The money system to collapse, the financial system to collapse. Well, one is the derivatives market, but then you have the other issue of growth. The world is growing at a very small pace now, and much of that growth is happening in China. China is still growing at 6%. It was growing at 25% just a few years ago. Now it's only growing at 6%, and that's the engine of the world. And it's slowing down, and it knows it's slowing down, and it can't avoid to slow down. It will start growing at some point at 3, at 2, and at 1%. When that happens, it's not an if, it's a when that happens, there's going to be no more engine, no more, the one that runs the train. What is it, the caboose? Well, you won't have the engine pulling on the world economy. So the U.S. won't be able to sell or buy so easily with China because the markets will be saturated. Europe won't be able to do the same thing, and growth will stop. When growth stops, again, grow or die. And what will happen is many companies will close down. They won't need people. There will be higher unemployment, and this is going to be a cycle where more people will be dependent on the welfare system, on unemployment. And we enter what is called the unemployment society. We no longer are in the service economy. We now move on to the unemployment.
And you think we're already in the, are we in the beginning of that right now as we're having this conversation?
it's very difficult to put a straight line and say, here's a dividing line. All I can say is that, and these are the indicators that I look for. You might look for a different indicator. I'm looking at China, and I'm saying they're the leader of the world as far as, pulling the world forward. They're the ones who are buying and selling, and they're still growing. And as long as they grow, there's a lot of room for businesses to expand into China, into Asia in general, right? But what happens when that slows down? Well, then we have a problem, a world problem, a global problem, because all these countries, Brazil, Argentina, Russia, everybody's dealing with the Chinese.
Yeah.
But if China doesn't grow, then, there comes a point of saturation, and that will happen. It's not an if, it's a when. It's only a when. And when that happens, we're all going to be in trouble. And I'm saying that at that point, we're going to start shutting down companies, laying people off, and, the system cannot have fewer and fewer workers maintaining more and more unemployed and welfare recipients. That's where the problem's going to be. That the economy will crash. And when that crashes, what are we saying? What does crash mean?
Well, what does it look like? What's it going to look like for the average guy going to Safeway, expecting his loaf of bread and his gallon of milk? Is it just the food's not going to be there, and then it all goes to hell?
Hold it. Let's back up a little bit. Hold it. No, it's not that the food's not going to be there. We got to look at it this way. First, they have to lay you off. So they lay you off so you won't have money. What's the purpose of money? Money is to pay salaries. Money is so that you can, you work, they give you money so that you can spend it again, and it goes in this circle. But what happens when you are unemployed? Well, you break that circle. The money now doesn't go to now it comes from the government as a welfare check or an unemployment check or whatever, right? And now you can go and spend it. But again, where does that money come from? Well, it comes from the people who work. They pull 10% out of your salary and pay the guy who doesn't work. That's how it works. It's a welfare system, essentially. And you cannot have a welfare system where more people are stuck on the welfare part and fewer on the working side. At some point, that system does collapse. And what I'm saying, when it collapses, at that point, we lose faith in money. Because, at some point, you're saying, well, what is money worth? You can't keep, like the governments are doing now, just creating money. They're creating money every day.
Yeah.
They're pumping money into the economy, millions and millions and billions and trillions. And what happens? At some point, money starts diluted to a point where it has no value, especially if you complement that with unemployment and welfare. Because then the government is just producing money, extra money, valueless money, to give to the unemployed and to the welfare recipient. So money gets diluted. At some point, it's got to crash. It's got to reach a dead-end point. When that happens, it's going to be just a straight line. Nobody's going to, pay attention to money anymore. But when that happens, what is the incentive of a company to produce food or to distribute it to the cities? Suddenly these people have no incentive. What profit are you going to make if money is no more? It has no value. That's the issue. At some point, the economy is going to collapse. It will. It's not an if. It will.
And
this is what people have a hard time understanding. They believe, no, money's always going to be there. No, it won't.
So what's your vision of this, Bill? Is this going to be what some people call a stair step or a spiral down, or are you in the over the cliff overnight collapse and crash and burn?
We're going to spiral to the cliff.
We're going to spiral to the cliff, and then it's going to be
straight down. One day we wake up, and because there's a panic that started maybe a couple weeks before, and it leads to this precipice, and suddenly, everybody just says, shit, money is worthless. And suddenly money has no value, and now the companies, they have no reason to produce food or distribute it. Now, if they don't produce a computer, distribute the computer, you don't care. But if they don't produce food and don't distribute it, then you got a little bit of a problem.
So what is it going to look like that morning when we wake up? And what's it going to look like 1 week after that morning? I mean, how rapidly is this shit going to come down?
Hopefully I won't be around for that day. But I cannot imagine efficiency continuing to improve every day. We do innovation, we do invention every day. We are becoming more and more efficient. What does efficient mean? It means we can do things with less cost. But what is cost? Cost is labor. That's cost. You know, you get rid of people because you can do it with a computer, for example.
Yeah.
You go to the airport and you do your own check-in. You don't need a check-in agent anymore. You go to the bank, you don't need a teller. You can go to the machine and get your money or put money in. You go to the supermarket, you do your own checkout, your own bagging, and you know you pay with a credit card. You don't need a cashier. So we're getting rid of people in key places where, you know, in the old days, in the 60s, my days, you dropped out of high school, no problem. You go to the corner store and say, hey, do you need a cashier? Yeah, come on, oh, we need you. So you could go in as a cashier. You won't be able to do that in the future. You won't have these menial jobs in which to start your life at. If you drop out of high school, you're dead. You better go back to mommy and daddy to maintain you because you won't have any way of sustaining yourself.
Well, I think you're seeing that already, more and more people living with mommy and daddy till they're 60 years old.
We're entering the unemployment society. Now, are we there yet? I don't know. You have to remember something else. Governments fudge around with the data regarding unemployment. There's 6 different categories of unemployment. And, you know, you got to know which one is which. You know, some include this, some include that, some don't include this, some don't include that. And they have these different categories. And, you know, if we look at unemployment, a retired person, he's unemployed. We don't think of it that way. We say, no, he's retired. He's not unemployed. He's unemployed. He doesn't work, and you have to maintain him. Where's that money coming from? Is it from his savings? No. The guy who's working, they're taking money out of his paycheck, and they're giving it to the guy who's not working. We call him a retiree. But what's happening? We're having more and more older people and fewer younger people because there's a bottleneck to get into the job market. And so we have fewer people contributing to the growing list of retirees. And that, you know, that's another, all these are negative trends. Not one of them is a positive trend.
Okay, so I'm looking at the little abstract of your paper about why we're the last. I like this sentence. You have it described here as the gradual, inevitable, and irreversible slowing down of global economic growth conduces to a dead end for our species. That sentence doesn't sound like an overnight over the cliff.
Well, you got to put it in the right perspective. There's going to be a period in which things get worse and worse. That's the spiral I'm talking about.
Is that the one where are we in that period spiral, now?
There's going to be a spiral of unemployment, less spending, less consumer spending, because, you know, if you're unemployed, you can't spend money. So in general, if a greater percentage of the population is unemployed, then there's less spending, there's less consumption. And what that does is trigger a spiral opposite of what happened in the 19th century. 19th century, there were new inventions, new products, and so people worked and they got money and they spent, and so the spiral was upwards. Now we're going to go into a downward spiral where, you know, there's more unemployment, less money to spend, less disposable income, for example, right? And so, you know, companies won't be able to sell, like car companies are having trouble selling right now. And so they have to lay off workers, and that creates more unemployment, and just the cycle goes downward. And that spiral goes through a certain period of time until it reaches a critical point where you are in front of the precipice and you just, you know, fall down.
So are you going to play the dangerous game of putting a year on that?
No, because every time I mention a year, people say, oh, but see, your prediction failed. I'm not an astrologer. I can only tell you the mechanism, and whether you buy it or not, that's, again, each individual knows whether they're going to accept the theory or not. I just want to explain what my theory is, first for the extinction of the animals in the past, and I'm saying that that same mechanism is going to be applicable to man. That's how Mother Nature will apply it to man, and man has no way, with all his intelligence, with all his technology, he cannot overcome that mechanism, specifically because he has the intelligence to create technology, which is causing the problem. Because by creating technology and becoming and putting innovation into the workforce, we're making it more and more efficient. What does that mean? It means we get rid of labor. And what does that mean? We have more unemployment, more welfare. And it's a cycle. And that cycle is inevitable, and it leads to a crisis.
Yeah, your last sentence, technology and intelligence are powerless to resist these imminent events. Neither serves as an antidote to extinction.
There's no antidote to extinction. Let me give you another, because people think that we are super powerful. We're not human. We're gods. We're eternal, and we have all this intelligence, so we're gods. And let me tell you something. We're not gods. And two things prove it to anybody who wants to look in the mirror. First, we age. We can't do anything about aging. And second, we die, and we can't do anything about dying. We will age, and we will die, and we must eat. And these are necessary things, or things we cannot avoid. So it's not like we can say, oh, you know, I'm so intelligent, and I've got all this technology, all this, I can foresee the future, and I can live without aging, I can live without dying, I can live without food. You can't do that. There are certain things that are mandatory. And those are vital things, are where Mother Nature harps on extinction. That's where she goes. That's our Achilles heel of humanity. You know, the necessary things. But
so
if an asteroid doesn't come, does it mean we'll live forever? Volcano. If the volcano doesn't erupt, we live forever. If the supernova doesn't happen, we live forever? No, we will die.
And you see this, you see this as 100% every living human being. I mean, from your scenario, 100% every single human being on this planet is gonna die because of the economic collapse. And there's not going to be little pockets of, you know, the guys who aren't as plugged into the system as you and I are, probably. No one's going to survive this, is what you're saying.
You fell short. You fell short. I'm sorry, but you fell short. You fell very short, because it's not only going to be humans that die. This is going to be a mass extinction. Mammals are going to disappear, just like dinosaurs disappeared. A whole order. Families, you know, entire families of species are going to die. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you're saying, are there going to be pockets? I think there might be. Sure, there could be pockets. What I'm saying is, this is not going to be Adam and Eve. We're not going to start, you know, the Garden of Eden thing again. Once the collapse happens, there could be pockets of people surviving. They're just going to live out their lives, because they're going to live a life of subsistence agriculture if they're going to survive. There won't be any animals to hunt out there. You know, you got all these survivalists. They're stocking up with guns and you know, because they plan to live in the forest. What are they going to hunt? There's going to be no deer. You know, we're going to kill any animal that's alive. Anything, you know, when the dinosaurs died, they say anything that was the size of a cat or a chicken or above disappeared.
So what's going to take out the animals is the hungry humans. I mean, they're going to eat they're going to start with their dog. He's going to be the first one in the stew pot, and then we're literally going to eat everything.
It's worse. It's worse. Imagine people say, well, are those tribes in the middle of the jungles, you know, are they going to also, they're not part of our economic system. But they're wrong. They're wrong. First of all, there are no lost tribes. We found them all.
Yeah. There's
no lost tribes on the planet. And the tribe that we made contact with now has a cell phone. You know, the shaman, the witch doctor, he's got a telephone in his hand. He can talk to Trump if he wants, right? And so these guys are not as lost, and they're not as backward as we think they are. That's the first one. The second one is, assuming there's a little tribe out there that still hunts, right? You know, monkeys or whatever, and that's what they eat. Well, what do you think the people who live nearby, like, you know, I was in the jungles of Brazil, in the Amazon, and they took me to this place where, you know, people are living in the Stone Age, okay? But these people, and some of them do hunt, and they catch their food, you know, like we used to do 50,000 years ago. But what happens? Everybody in town, in the nearest town, in the civilized part of town, they know about them.
Yeah.
And what do you think these people are? They're going to starve when the shit hits the fan? No. They're going to go out there and they're going to hunt the animals that these people hunt, if not the people themselves. So to say that these people are not going to be affected by our economic system over here is bullshit. You know, the towns that are near where these people live, where these hunter-gatherers live, all these people are going to go out there and hunt the elephant, the giraffe, whatever they can find. You're not going to starve. You're going to try to survive.
And once we've eaten every single one of our fellow Earthlings we share, then we're going to eat each other. I guess we're next on the menu.
Dinosaurs died. Probably the last phase was cannibalism.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be frank. You're starving. You're going to eat your neighbor before you starve completely to death. And that's the guy you played bowling with yesterday.
So first you're going to eat your neighbor's dog, and once you've eaten the dog, then where do you go from the neighbor's dog? I mean, this isn't rocket science, right?
It's not rocket science. It's human nature or animal nature. What do? We take care of number one. You know, it's just normal. You're starving. You're going to do something about it. You can't say, you know, it's easy to talk with when you have your stomach full, but
oh yeah,
you do drastic things.
So the bottom line, now, so you're very careful, and I knew you would be, not to put a year on it, but at the same time, you are saying we are the last generation. You mean the people alive on this planet today? There will be a few more years of more people being born. What year is the last human going to be born on this planet? Are you going to go there?
I have in my website, you know, I do have a definition of generation, because that is a big word. You know,
what is it?
Did Galileo belong to the same generation as Newton, even though they were born in the same century? Yeah. Well, you know, generation is a word that could mean, you know, people within 10 years, within 20 years, within a whole century. So we can't use, you know, it's a very vague word, and you would have to define generation before you can use it scientifically. All I'm trying to say here is that, you know, when I say we are the last generation, you know, I could die tomorrow morning and I won't see it. But what I'm saying, it's imminent. And by imminent, I mean that the global economy is very close to collapsing. By collapsing, I mean money disappears. That's what I mean by collapse. I don't mean what all these other nuts out there say when they say collapse and they don't know what they said. I'm saying it specifically. I'm defining it. Collapse means we pay no more attention to money. Money is no more. When money is no more, we're in trouble, because our whole distribution, especially food distribution system, depends on money. So if we remove money from the equation, we got a serious problem. And I'm saying money will disappear. And that's where we have the problem with my naysayers out there, people who don't agree with me. They say, well, money can't disappear. Well, we created it. I mean, and so I go into this analysis of what possible means and what probable means. People confuse probable with possible. Possible is what we can do. It's a yes or no, black or white kind of issue. Probable is a, you know, 1 to 100%. What is the probability? Well, 50, 60%. Is it possible that we throw the bombs at each other? Well, possible it is. I press the button, I can throw it. Physically, it's a yes or no issue. I can press the button. Will we? Yeah. Is the probability. That's a different issue. Will we? Well, you might say, well, there's 90% probability. I might say it's only 10%. So probability is an issue of discussion. Whether something is black or white, whether we can or not press the button, that's non-negotiable. Sure, we can press the button physically. And the same way we can do with money. Can money disappear? Yes, money can disappear because we created it. We press the button tomorrow, all the politicians on earth get together, they have a huddle, and they say, let's destroy money deliberately. And sometimes you think they're doing that. But so, you know, we can, if we want to destroy money, we can all put our heads together and say, let's destroy money. We can do that if we want. We can do it. Will we do it? Now, that's a different issue.
Okay, I see good Lord, we're already 45 minutes into this, which means I have an absolute max of 15 minutes left. I can't believe 45 minutes has gone by, so I always wrap up my interviews with a two-part question. I think you've already answered these two questions, but I'm going to ask them again anyway. Part A of the question, at this point where we are in the spiral, is there a damn thing we as a species are going to do to turn this around? And then the final question is do you have any advice to any individual listening to this, how to live their rest of their life once they take this knowledge in? So let's start with the species. As a species, are we going to turn this train wreck around or not?
Well, we can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about extinction any more than we can do anything about aging or about dying. We can't do anything about these things. We don't have we're not gods. We think we're gods. We think God designated us as the gardener in the Garden of Eden. So we say, he put all these little animals for our enjoyment, so we can eat them or whatever. No, we're not gods. We're just another animal in Eden. And we don't believe this. We've grown so arrogant with our intelligence that we think that, we're superior. Look, we have intelligence. We're the rulers of the planet, right? But we're animals. We sleep, we shit, we eat, we do everything that animals do. We have sex, so we're animals. And when we look at extinction, we have to look at the vitals. Sleeping, eating, that's where we have to look for extinction, because that's what Mother Nature has scheduled for us. And what I'm saying is all species age, something people don't understand so easily, and all species die, and there's nothing any species can do about it. That's the first question. The second question was
the individuals. Okay, so you might as well pull your head out of your ass and understand that we're fucked, is what I hear you saying. So what if you believe this? What do you do for the rest of your life from this point forward, Bill? What do you do to live out the rest of your life with this knowledge without putting a damn bullet through your head? What's your advice to people listening to this?
Well, people say I'm a pessimist, and I'm not. I drink beer and I drink wine, so I can't be a pessimist. I'm a realist. If I'm on the Titanic and the Titanic is sinking, I might have illusions that I might live, but fate will determine otherwise. I'll sink with the ship, and I got to be realistic about that. And the question here is, the first thing we have to forget is about all this environmental stuff. I don't care if the ice caps are melting, or I don't care if we kill, if they're poaching animals in Africa. In fact, I recommend it. I recommend that we get rid of all the dangerous animals like lions and alligators. We have no use for them. They're killing people, and what do we need them for? To look at them, to say the variety of nature, kill them all. I don't care. So I'm not an animal lover in that sense. But we have to forget about, all these environmental things. I'm saying that we have to look at the economy, and there's nothing we can do about the economy because the system is going to reach a cul-de-sac. It's going to reach a dead end at some point, and at that point, we're going to have the crisis. Now, what can the individual do? Well, the individual should do what I do.
Which
you
is?
drink beer day after day, and you'll live a great life. You have a great life day after day after. You live the moment. What exists now is what you have now. That's what you're living right now. You step out tomorrow morning and a car runs over you. You didn't have to wait for the end of the world. So live today. Don't worry about the future because there is no future. Specifically, don't worry about leaving a pristine garden for the future generations because there's going to be no future generations. Worry about yourself. Worry about number one, and live today. As long as you live today, you're okay. Oh, and there's one more thing. Sorry. There is one more thing which is very important.
All right.
You can fix all the problems in the world today. Very simple. All the problems. Turn your fucking TV off.
All right, brother. There you go.
If you turn it off, you're going to live a happy life. But if you turn it on, you're going to worry about what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Afghanistan. What's that got to do with you?
Well, it's amazing. Like every single person I interview, from all across the spectrum in this debate, they end up with the same advice that I do too. Get out there and enjoy. Once you take this knowledge in, it really does make each and every day more special. I mean, to get out there and enjoy it while we still can.
Breathe fresh air, go out, you need to hunt a deer, just kill the deer. Don't worry about it, unless, they put you in prison for doing it. But if it's allowed, go kill the deer. That's what you want to do. I mean, I don't kill deer. I don't care about killing animals. But, I mean, if there's a poacher, I don't care if he kills a lion. Who cares? That's for people who are bleeding hearts. We don't understand that that's not important. We're not going to save the Alliance anyways.
Well, as I say, I'm not going to get into a debate with you, brother. But that's all I'm trying to do on is I'm simply trying to get this debate going on the planet that nobody is talking about. I mean, this tiny little group of us are even having this debate. Now, as I say, you will probably get some nasty comments from some.
No, but let me tell you something. You won't find my theory, for example, in Wikipedia. You'll find idiotic theories, even though they're not published, like, egg predation, that the dinosaurs died because some animal ate their eggs or whatever. They'll come up with idiotic theories, and those they'll put in there like saying, oh, we covered that base. But a theory that says, look, plants disappear regularly and animals that ate those plants disappear with them, you won't find that. The first guy came up with that is me in those papers. And I'm not trying to brag here. I'm just trying to say this is a fact. But you won't find that in places like the Wikipedia that people consult, because, try to put it in there, and I challenge you to do that, and you'll see you won't be able to, because they'll say, oh, where'd you get this?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's a theory, right? They won't allow it.
Well,
they won't allow it. Those theories, you won't see them on the internet. You gotta stay. You gotta look for them. You
gotta come down to Humpty Dumpty tribe to find this theory. So, well, anyway, so
yeah.
let's get now. After I say goodbye here on the video, I want you to hang out so we can talk a couple more minutes. But for the purposes of this interview, give us your 1 minute takeaway message. If you need a 60-second soundbite to send out to probably the 1,000 people on this planet of 7.5 billion who are going to tune into this, what is your goodbye 60-second takeaway message to Humpty Dumpty tribe?
Just drink beer and have fun. Have sex today, not tomorrow. Have it today. Just live life today. Because there is no tomorrow. That is it. We don't know when this shit is going to hit the fan. So, my only recommendation is live today.
That's it, brother.
See, we always have our mind in the future. We always say, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow, next week, next year? Oh, we have to leave a pristine garden for the future. And I'm saying all that is nonsense. Live today.
Okay, brother. And with that sage advice, we're going to wrap up this interview. So all of you bleeding hearts, animal lovers, and you wacky climate change people believing in that, and you overpopulation wackos out there thinking that overpopulation is killing this planet. Have fun with your comments. I'm sure Bill will enjoy reading your comments, and but we're going to say, get out there and enjoy it while you still can, and thank you very much, Brother Bill, for coming on board, and hope to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.